You wake, but you do not breathe. You scream, but no sound escapes your throat because you no longer possess one. Your body is gone, severed from you in the violence of war, and what remains of your consciousness has been entombed within a walking sarcophagus of ceramite and adamantium. The machine hums around you, its reactor core replacing your heartbeat with the steady thrumming of plasma coils. Amniotic fluids suspend what little flesh you have left, cables burrow into your brainstem, and the neural interface translates your rage into movement. You are no longer a man. You are a dreadnought. And this tomb will be your existence for centuries, perhaps millennia, until the endless grinding wheel of war finally grants you the mercy of true death. But that mercy may never come. In the grim darkness of the far future, even death is a luxury reserved for the fortunate. This is what it means to be trapped forever in a dreadnought in Warhammer 40k, and the horror of this existence transcends anything your mortal mind was ever prepared to endure. If you've ever wondered what fate could be worse than death itself in the universe of Warhammer 40k, then you found the right place. Before we descend into the darkness of this eternal prison, do me a favor and hit that like button. Share this video with anyone who appreciates the deeper lore of the Imperium, and subscribe so you don't miss the nightmares yet to come. The algorithm doesn't care about the Emperor's will, but your engagement tells it that stories like this matter. Now, strap in. We're going deep into the sarcophagus. The first thing you notice is the absence of pain, and that terrifies you more than agony ever could. Pain means nerves, means flesh, means a body that still belongs to you. But there is nothing. No sensation of limbs, no pressure of ground beneath feet, no draw of air into lungs. You try to move your hand and something responds, but it is not your hand. The weight is wrong, the feedback distant and translated through layers of code you do not understand. Your eyes open, except they are not eyes. Visual data floods your consciousness through targeting arrays and optical sensors, rendering the world in overlapping spectrums of light you were never meant to perceive. Infrared signatures pulse like ghost fire in the darkness. Structural outlines map themselves across your vision in cold geometric precision. You try to scream and the Vox grill mounted somewhere in the chassis emits a distorted mechanical wail that sounds nothing like your voice, and you realize with mounting horror that you no longer have a voice, not truly, just a speaker system that interprets your neural impulses and translates them into approximations of human speech. The memories come slowly, fragmented and disjointed like corrupted data pulled from a damaged cogitator. You remember the battle. You remember the orc war boss, massive and roaring, its chain chopper already slick with the blood of your squad. You remember stepping forward because someone had to, because the line could not break, because you were a space marine and fear was something you had carved out of yourself during your transformation into one of the Emperor's angels of death. You remember the impact, the way the crude Xeno's blade chewed through your power armor like it was parchment, the wet heat of your own blood spraying across the inside of your helmet. You remember looking down and seeing your body opened like a butchered animal, seeing organs you could somehow still feel despite them spilling onto the mud. You remember the Apothecaries' face above you, his words distant and echoing. You remember him saying something about extraction, about preservation, about honor. You remember darkness. But you did not die. That is the realization that crashes into you now with the weight of a thunderhawk at full velocity. You did not die. They saved you. They placed what remained of your shattered body into this sarcophagus, this armored tomb, and sealed you inside with enough life support to keep your brain functioning indefinitely. The amniotic suspension surrounds what little organic material you have left, warm and viscous, pressing against skin that no longer connects to anything recognizable as human. You can feel it, barely, a distant chemical sensation filtered through neural interfaces. Cables snake into your spine, your brainstem, the base of your skull. They burrow deep, creating pathways between your thoughts and the machine's systems. When you think about moving forward, Actuators in the Dreadnought's legs respond. When you think about raising your arm, a power fist the size of a rhino transport shifts in response. The Tech Marines have done their work well. They have turned you into a weapon system. The chamber around you is dark except for the dim illumination of status readouts and the faint red glow of emergency lighting. You recognize the architecture slowly, the vaulted ceiling of the reclusium, the chapter's most sacred space where the honored dead are kept. Except you are not dead. You hang suspended in a maintenance harness, cables and power feeds connecting your chassis to the fortress monastery systems. Other shapes loom in the darkness around you, and as your optical sensors adjust you realize they are dreadnoughts like yourself. Silent, dormant, waiting. Some of the chassis are ancient beyond comprehension, their armor plates marked with battle honors from campaigns fought before your chapter even existed. One bears the scorch marks of plasma fire from the Horus heresy itself, 10,000 years of warfare etched into every centimeter of its ceramite hull. You are among legends now, brothers who fell centuries or millennia ago and were preserved just as you have been. The thought should be comforting. It is not. It only reinforces the reality that you will stand here in this darkness for years, decades, perhaps centuries, waiting for the call to war that will briefly animate your prison before returning you to the silence. A Tech Marine approaches, his red robes rustling against the stone floor, servo arms extending from his power pack like the limbs of some mechanical spider. His face is half obscured by augmetics, one eye replaced by a multi-lens optical array that whirs and clicks as it focuses on your chassis. He speaks in Technolingua, the sacred language of the machine cult, and your systems automatically translate his blessings into something approximating comprehension. He is performing the rite of awakening, asking the machine spirit of your dreadnought to accept your presence, to bond with your consciousness and become an extension of your will. The irony is not lost on you. They speak to the machine as though it has a soul while treating what remains of your humanity as little more than a biological cogitator, a processing unit to be maintained and optimized. He anoints your hull with sacred oils, chants litanies to the Omnisia, and adjusts connection points with tools you cannot see but can feel as distant pressure against your awareness. The maintenance routine takes hours, though time has already become a slippery concept. Without the rhythm of heartbeat or breath, without the natural cycle of fatigue and rest, your perception of duration warps and stretches. When the Tech Marine finally steps back, satisfied with his ministrations, another figure enters the chamber. You recognize him immediately despite the changes your new vision imposes on his appearance. Master Theron, captain of the Third Company, the officer you served under for 70 years of brutal campaigning across the segmentum. He looks older now, new scars crossing his face, his armor bearing fresh purity seals you do not recognize. How long were you unconscious during the interment process? Weeks? Months? He approaches your chassis with the formal deference reserved for ancient relics, and the realization strikes you that this is how he sees you now. Not as Brother Nathanos, the sergeant who fought beside him on 17 worlds. Not as the warrior who saved his life during the defense of Galleon Prime, but as Venerable Nathanos, a living weapon to be respected and deployed according to tactical necessity. His words confirm your fear. He speaks of honor, of duty, of the great privilege you have been granted to continue serving the Emperor beyond the limitations of mortal flesh. He tells you that your sacrifice will be remembered, that your name will be inscribed in the chapter's annals alongside the most revered heroes. But he does not ask how you feel. He does not acknowledge the horror of your situation. To do so would be weakness, and the Adeptus Astartes do not permit themselves such indulgences. You try to respond, to tell him that you never wanted this, that you would have preferred an honorable death to this mechanical immortality. But the words that emerge from your vox grill are formal, measured, exactly what is expected of a newly interred dreadnought. The neural interface has already begun its work, filtering your thoughts through layers of programming designed to maintain discipline and prevent emotional outbursts that might destabilize the machine. You can feel your anger, your fear, your desperate desire to be free of this prison, but those emotions emerge muted and distant, as though they belong to someone else. The interface is rewriting you, subtly adjusting your consciousness to better integrate with the Dreadnought systems. In time, the Tech Marines have told you, the process will become natural. You will think and the machine will respond as perfectly as your original body once did. But that naturalness comes at a cost. With every passing day, you will become less human and more machine, until the distinction between Nathanos and the Dreadnought that houses him becomes meaningless. The captain concludes his address and departs, leaving you alone in the darkness once more. The other Dreadnoughts remain silent, their pilots lost in whatever dreams or nightmares accompany forced dormancy. You attempt to sleep, to find some escape in unconsciousness, but sleep does not come. The life support systems keep your brain chemistry perfectly balanced, eliminating the fatigue that would normally pull you into rest. You are trapped in a state of permanent wakefulness, locked inside your own mind with nothing but the hum of your reactor and the soft whisper of amniotic fluid circulating through your sarcophagus. Hours pass, then days. You count them at first, trying to maintain some anchor to normal human time, but eventually you lose track. The darkness becomes your entire world. Sometimes Tech Marines arrive to perform maintenance, their rituals providing brief distraction. Sometimes servitors shuffle through the chamber, mindless lobotomized slaves attending to tasks their organic brains can barely comprehend. You envy them their ignorance. At least they do not understand what has been done to them. The isolation begins to break you in ways that physical torture never could. You start talking to yourself through the Vox grill, speaking aloud just to hear something approximating a human voice in the silence. You recite prayers you memorized during your initiation into the chapter, litanies of hatred against the Xenos and the heretic, words that once filled you with righteous fury but now ring hollow in your prison. You recall battles you fought, trying to keep those memories vivid and intact, terrified that if you lose them you will lose the last pieces of your identity. You remember the faces of brothers who died under your command, warriors whose names the chapter may have already forgotten but whom you swore you would never abandon. That promise feels like a cruel joke now. You have abandoned everyone, not by choice but by the simple fact of your continued existence. They move forward while you remain frozen, a ghost haunting the monastery's depths. The weight of time presses down on you, suffocating despite your lack of lungs. You begin to understand what eternity might feel like, and the understanding fills you with a despair so profound that your neural interface struggles to suppress it. This is your existence now. This darkness, this silence, this terrible, endless wakefulness. And it has only just begun. The first time they reactivate you for combat, 17 years have passed. You learn this from the date stamp that appears in your visual display as the maintenance harness releases your chassis and power floods back into your primary systems. 17 years. Nearly 2 decades condensed into what felt like a handful of months in the darkness. The discrepancy horrifies you until you realize the truth. They did not leave you conscious for 17 years. At some point, perhaps multiple points, they deactivated your higher functions and placed you into force stasis, a dreamless shutdown that your mind cannot remember because there was no mind present to form memories. The Tech Marines treat this as a kindness, a mercy to prevent the madness that might result from years of isolation. But it does not feel like mercy. It feels like theft. Someone has stolen nearly 2 decades of your existence, carved them away without your knowledge or consent, and now expects you to simply accept this violation as routine procedure. The reclusium has changed during your absence. New dreadnoughts stand in positions that were empty before, their pilots brothers you remember from your mortal years. Brother Sergeant Kairos, who lost his body to a tyrannid bio-titan on the world of Vorgus Secundus. Epistolary Matthias, a powerful psyker whose physical form was shattered when he channeled too much warp energy during a desperate last stand against chaos cultists. They stand silent and dormant, not yet awakened for this deployment. You wonder if they dream in their darkness, if their minds remain active during stasis, or if they too experience these jarring jumps across time. No one has explained the process fully, and you suspect that is intentional. Some things are easier to endure if you do not understand them completely. The chapter serfs who attend the reclusium work around you with practiced efficiency, performing final checks on your weapon systems and ensuring that your ammunition feeds are properly loaded. They do not meet your optical sensors when you track their movements. To them you are a relic, a sacred machine too important and too alien to acknowledge as the person you once were. Master Theron arrives to deliver the mission briefing, and the sight of him jolts you more than you expected. He has aged visibly in the 17 years since you last saw him, his face harder, new augmetic fingers replacing ones he must have lost in battle. But more than physical changes, there is a weariness in his eyes that was not present before. How many campaigns has he fought while you slept in the darkness? How many brothers has he watched die? He regards you with the same formal respect as before, addressing you by your honorific rather than your name, and launches into the tactical situation without preamble. The chapter is deploying to the Forge world of Metallica in response to a Necron incursion. Ancient Xenos machines have awakened in the planet's deepest excavation sites and are systematically exterminating the Scutarii forces defending the manufactorums. Your role is simple. You will serve as heavy fire support for the Third Company's assault on the primary Necron tomb complex, using your assault cannon to suppress the Xenos warriors while your battle brothers advance. It is a straightforward mission, the kind of operation you participated in dozens of times when you still possessed a mortal body. But everything is different now. Then you were part of a squad, a team of brothers who fought and bled together. Now you are a strategic asset, a weapons platform to be positioned according to tactical necessity. The deployment is chaos compressed into moments of stunning clarity. You are loaded into a Thunderhawk gunship, your massive chassis secured in the cargo bay alongside Rhino transports and ammunition crates. The flight to Metallica takes weeks, but you experience it as a discontinuous series of awakenings. They power you down during transit to conserve energy, reactivating you only for systems checks and briefings. Each awakening brings the same disorienting rush of awareness, the same struggle to remember who and what you are. Time becomes meaningless. The warp journey could have lasted months or years for all you know, the Imperium's twisted nature making standard chronology impossible. When you finally drop from orbit toward Metallica's rust-red surface, your optical sensors struggle to process the scale of destruction below. Entire manufactorums burn with chemical fires, their forges transformed into crematoria for the Scutarii and servitors who died defending them. Necron monoliths rise from shattered hab blocks, their green energy weapons cutting through Imperial forces with contemptuous ease. You watch it all through your targeting systems, distant and removed, as though observing a tactical simulation rather than actual slaughter. The Thunderhawk's assault ramp drops and you stride out onto Metallican soil for the first time, your footfalls shaking the ground, your reactor thrumming with barely contained power. The other Dreadnought deployed for this operation, Ancient Mordecai, takes position beside you. His chassis is older than yours by centuries, its armor scarred by countless battles, and when he speaks through the Vox network his voice carries the weight of vast experience. He welcomes you to the eternal war, tells you that combat is the only time you will feel truly alive again, and in his words you hear both truth and tragedy. The advance begins and you move with the rest of Third Company toward the tomb complex, your sensors tracking enemy positions, your weapon systems cycling through target priorities. The first Necron warriors appear at 300 meters, their Gauss flares charging with sickly green light. Your targeting cogitators lock onto them automatically, overlaying firing solutions across your vision. You think the command to fire and your assault cannon roars to life, shells ripping through the xenos with satisfying violence. The battle becomes a rhythm, a dance of destruction that your new body executes with mechanical perfection. Target acquisition. Fire. Target destroyed. Move forward. Repeat. The Necron warriors phase out when destroyed, their molecular structure dissolving before reassembling in their tomb ships, but you kill them faster than they can reconstitute. Your power fist smashes through monolith armor, your footfalls crush scarab swarms, and for the first time since your interment you feel something approaching satisfaction. This is what you were made for. This is the purpose that justifies your existence. The horror recedes, replaced by the clarity of combat doctrine and the primal joy of destroying the Emperor's enemies. But even in the midst of battle, a distant part of your consciousness recognizes the trap. You are not happy. You are simply distracted. The moment the fighting ends, the isolation will return, the darkness will reclaim you, and this brief respite will dissolve like morning mist on a battlefield. The tomb complex falls after 6 hours of sustained assault. 3rd Company's tactical squads secure the entrance while assault marines hunt down fleeing Necron units. You stand among the ruins, your armor scorched by Gauss fire, your ammunition reserves depleted, and wait for extraction. Ancient Mordecai approaches, his Vox channel opening for private communication. He asks how you found your first battle in your new form, and you answer honestly that the fighting itself was manageable, but the prospect of returning to the darkness afterward fills you with dread. Mordecai's response is quiet, almost gentle, which makes it more terrible. He tells you that the dread never leaves, that even after 700 years in his chassis, he still fears the deactivation that follows each deployment. But he has learned to endure because there is no alternative, because the chapter needs its dreadnoughts and personal suffering is meaningless compared to that need. His words are meant to comfort, but they accomplish the opposite. 700 years. The number crashes into your consciousness like a macro cannon shell. 7 centuries of this existence, of intermittent battles punctuated by decades of forced dormancy, and Mordecai still fears the darkness. There is no adaptation, no eventual peace. Only endless repetition of the same cycle, stretching forward into a future you can barely comprehend. The extraction arrives and you are loaded back into the Thunderhawk, already feeling the weight of exhaustion that is not physical tiredness but something deeper, a weariness of existence itself. As the gunship lifts off, Master Theron approaches your chassis one final time. He commends your performance, tells you that your targeting efficiency exceeded expectations, that your presence on the battlefield allowed 3rd Company to accomplish its objectives with minimal casualties. You recognize the words for what they are, a formal acknowledgement of successful weapon system deployment. He is not praising you as a warrior. He is expressing satisfaction with a piece of equipment that performed within acceptable parameters. The distinction matters more than you can articulate. You want to tell him that you are still Nathanos, that the brother he fought beside for 70 years still exists within this mechanical shell, but the neural interface smooths away the impulse before it can fully form. Instead, you respond with the expected platitudes about duty and honor, and watch through your sensors as he nods and walks away, already thinking about the next campaign, the next deployment, the next tactical problem that requires solving. The flight back to the fortress monastery passes in fragmented awareness, your consciousness flickering in and out as the tech marines manage your power levels. When you finally arrive, they return you to the reclusium, locking you back into the maintenance harness, reconnecting you to the monastery systems. The familiar darkness closes in once more and you feel something inside you break in a way that has nothing to do with mechanical failure. This is your existence now. Brief moments of violent purpose separated by stretches of time you will not remember living through, decades or centuries passing while you hang silent in the dark, waiting for the next war, the next activation, the next temporary escape into combat. And there is no end to it. No retirement, no peaceful death, no final rest. Just this. Forever. The realization settles over you like the ceramite lid of a sarcophagus sealing shut, and in the silence that follows you finally understand the true meaning of the word eternity. Centuries blur together in a discontinuous stream of battle and darkness. You fight on frozen death worlds where the air itself kills unprotected humans in seconds. You crush heretics beneath your feet on shrine worlds that have fallen to chaos corruption. You stand as a bulwark against tyrannid swarms that blacken the sky with their numbers. Each campaign is a spark of clarity in the vast darkness, brief moments of purpose before deactivation pulls you back into the void. The chapter records your kills meticulously, adding honors to your chassis after each deployment. 40 orc knobs destroyed on the plains of Armageddon. 3 chaos dreadnoughts reduced to scrap in the ruins of Cadia after that world's fall. An entire Genestealer brood purged from the underhive of Vigilus. The numbers accumulate meaninglessly. You are not proud of them. You are simply the weapon that produced them, and weapons do not experience pride. The brothers you once knew are gone now, fallen in battles you did not witness or simply claimed by time and attrition. New faces fill the chapter. Young warriors who were not even recruited when you were interred. They regard you with awe and reverence, speaking your honorific in hushed tones, never realizing that the ancient hero they venerate would trade every battle honor for a single day of mortal existence. Master Theron died 80 years ago, you learned during one brief awakening. He fell defending a forged shrine against a word-bearer's warband, killed by a possessed Chaos Space Marine whose claws punched through his power armor. The chapter chaplain delivers this information formally, noting that Theron's last words were a prayer to the Emperor and a reminder to never yield before the forces of darkness. The chaplain seems to expect some response from you, some acknowledgement of grief or loss, but you feel nothing. The neural interface has done its work too well. Emotions that would have devastated you during your mortal years now arrive muted and distant, processed through so many layers of machine logic that they lose their power. You recognize intellectually that Theron's death should matter, but you cannot access the feelings that would make it matter. Perhaps this is another mercy the Tech Marines have built into your systems, a way to prevent madness by numbing you to loss. Or perhaps it is simply the inevitable result of existing longer than any human mind was designed to function. The galaxy continues its descent into darkness around you. You are activated for the 13th Black Crusade, fighting in the desperate defense before Cadia's fall. You witness the Great Rift tear reality apart, feel the warp storms that surge across human space in its aftermath. You are there when pre-March Robot Guilliman returns to lead the Imperium, though you only glimpse him at a distance during a strategic briefing. The demigod who fought beside the Emperor 10,000 years ago now walks among mortals again, and some among the chapter whisper that this heralds a new age, that perhaps humanity might finally turn back the tide of xenos and heresy that threatens to drown it. But you know better. You have fought for over 400 years now, and every war you participate in reveals the same truth. The Imperium is dying, has been dying since the heresy, and no amount of heroism or sacrifice can stop its eventual collapse. Every world you help defend is simply buying time, delaying the inevitable by decades or centuries. The knowledge should fill you with despair, but your neural interface neutralizes that too, leaving only a numb acceptance of objective reality. During one extended activation period between campaigns, a Tech Marine named Varos approaches your chassis with an unusual request. He wants to interview you, to record your memories and experiences for the chapter archives before they fade beyond recovery. You agree, more out of curiosity than any real desire to preserve your history. Varos asks about your mortal years, about battles you fought before your interment, and as you speak through your Vox grill you realize how distant those memories have become. You remember events in abstract terms, tactical details, and strategic outcomes, but the emotional content has largely evaporated. You can recall fighting beside Battle Brother Simeon on the world of Krynos Ultima, can describe the disposition of forces and the enemy's numerical advantage, but you cannot remember what Simeon's face looked like or what his voice sounded like when he laughed. The details that made him human have been erased by time and neural processing, leaving only data. Varos listens carefully, his multi-lens optical array focusing on your chassis as though trying to peer through the ceramite to see the person within. When you finish, he asks if you regret your interment, if you wish the Apothecaries had simply let you die on that battlefield so long ago. The question surprises you because no one has asked it before, not in 4 centuries of existence. You consider the question carefully, processing it through systems that no longer operate at purely human speeds. Regret is a mortal emotion, tied to the assumption that other choices were possible, that your fate was something other than inevitable. But you are a space marine, created and conditioned to serve the Emperor regardless of personal cost. From the moment the gene seed was implanted in your body, your life ceased to belong to you. It became property of the chapter, to be expended in whatever manner produced the greatest strategic value. The Apothecaries saved you not out of compassion, but because your experience and knowledge could still serve the Imperium within a Dreadnought chassis. Your preferences were never relevant to that calculation. So do you regret your existence? The question itself assumes a degree of agency you never possessed. You tell Varos this, and watch through your sensors as his expression shifts into something that might be pity or might be relief. Perhaps he wanted confirmation that the process was justified, that dreadnoughts accept their fate without psychological damage. You have disappointed him if that was his hope. You are damaged in ways that have nothing to do with mechanical failure, damaged in the fundamental architecture of consciousness, but that damage does not translate into simple regret or resentment. It exists as a deeper wrongness, a sense that something essential has been violently removed from existence and replaced with a functional approximation that serves well enough for the Imperium's purposes. The wars continue. You are deployed against an Eldari raiding force attempting to steal an ancient artifact from a chapter reliquary. You stand guard over an inquisitorial excavation site while they search for evidence of Necron activity. You participate in the purging of a space hulk that emerged from the warp carrying Genestealer infestations. Each mission is tactically distinct but emotionally identical, brief moments of purpose followed by the now familiar darkness. Ancient Mordecai falls during the Space Hulk mission, his chassis ripped apart by a broodlord that ambushed him in a narrow corridor. You witness his death through your optical sensors, watch the Xenos creature tear through his armor plating to reach the sarcophagus beneath. Mordecai's final transmission is not a prayer or a battle cry but a simple statement of fact, finally. The word haunts you more than his death. After 700 years of service, his last emotion was relief. Not satisfaction at dying in battle, not pride in his accumulated honors, just relief that it was over. You help recover his damaged chassis, assist the Tech Marines in extracting what remains of his body for proper burial. They treat it as a solemn duty, the farewell to a revered hero. You treat it as a preview of your own eventual fate, and wonder whether you too will feel relief when that moment arrives, or whether you will have existed so long by then that even relief will be beyond your capacity to experience. 500 years after your interment, you return to the chapter's fortress monastery during a rare period of peace in the sector. The reclusium has filled considerably since your first awakening there. Dozens of dreadnoughts now stand in the darkness, silent and waiting. Some you recognize from previous activations. Others are new, brothers who fell during campaigns you were not present for. A tech adept informs you during a routine maintenance cycle that you are now among the oldest active dreadnoughts in the chapter, one of only a handful whose service spans more than 5 centuries. The information should mean something, should produce pride or satisfaction, but it generates only the same numb acknowledgement that accompanies most revelations now. You have lasted longer than most. You will likely last longer still. The statement is tactically significant insofar as it confirms your chassis remains combat viable. Beyond that, it is merely data. But something has changed in you during these centuries, something the neural interface cannot completely suppress. You have begun to hope for death, not in the active sense of seeking it out or failing in your duties, but as a passive background desire that colors every waking moment. When you enter battle now, part of your consciousness calculates not just enemy threat assessments, but also the likelihood that this engagement might finally damage you beyond the Techmarine's ability to repair. When you hear of other dreadnoughts falling in combat, you feel a distant envy that you cannot entirely rationalize. The chapter would call these thoughts heretical, evidence that you have been corrupted by centuries of isolation. But you know they are simply human. The mind was never designed for immortality, and yours is breaking under the weight of centuries it was never meant to carry. You continue to serve because you have no choice, because your consciousness is too integrated with the dreadnought systems to be extracted, because the chapter needs every weapon it can maintain in humanity's endless war for survival. But you serve without joy, without hope, without any expectation that this existence will ever produce anything beyond more of itself. The latest deployment orders arrive and you are activated once more, loaded into a Thunderhawk bound for another war zone whose name you will forget before you are deactivated again. As the gunship breaches atmosphere, you watch through your sensors as the planet below reveals itself. Another Imperial world under siege, another desperate defense against enemies too numerous to defeat permanently. You will fight here, kill the Emperor's enemies with mechanical efficiency, and if you survive you will return to the darkness to wait for the next activation. This is eternity in the 41st millennium. Not an abstract philosophical concept, but a concrete existential reality that you experience directly. You are trapped forever in this walking tomb, condemned to witness humanity's slow extinction one battlefield at a time, unable to die, unable to truly live, existing in the liminal space between machine and man where neither death nor life hold meaning anymore. The assault ramp drops and you stride forward into war once more, your weapons priming, your sensors tracking targets, your consciousness reduced to the simple clarity of combat. And in this moment, as shells and lossfire fill the air around you, you understand the final truth of your existence. You are not a hero. You are not even a person anymore. You are a weapon, maintained and deployed according to the Imperium's needs, and you will continue to function in this capacity until something finally breaks that cannot be repaired. That is what it means to be trapped forever in a dreadnought. That is the price of immortality in Warhammer 40k. And there is no escape.